Vijay Drakoi. I will speak now.
And next we have surgical patient 4729. Dr. Beatrice, open the containment capsule.
Yes, Dr. Suleymahn.
Patient appears to be in good physical health. No apparent blemishes of note. Integration into the clinic construct has been completed.
Nurse Ambient, please report to Dr. Shulder's office. Nurse Ambient, report to Dr. Shulder's office, please.
Surgical suite protocols have been enacted during the integration process. Patient is lucid and aware, but physically paralyzed. Surgical itinerary indicates... Oh, what have we here? Well. It would seem we have ourselves a very distinguished patient indeed. A personally recommended client of the Technomancer himself, no less.
Holy Ned. Are you kidding me? Seven hells, I've heard stories. Everyone at the medical lyceum has heard stories about the Technomancer. He's, sort of a legend there. Like an actual mythological figure.
The stories you've heard are not legends, Dr. Beatrice. The Technomancer is quite real. He moves among the demons of the Chaos Realms, and in the mortal realm as well. My dear, sweet, paralyzed, dreaming human. You may not fully comprehend this, but a very powerful, very influential being has taken an interest in you. But this is no time to bore you by waxing loquacious and singing the praises of the Silicon Prince. May he bless us with his tech and wisdom. Now, about that surgical itinerary. It says here that you are to receive, by order of your patron, one ocular implant with macro and microscopic features, 20 times magnification, onboard data storage, and built-in written language translator, compatible with 190 of the most commonly written human languages, as well as the Serpentoid and near-abyssal demonic scripts of it enough.
Why would a human need those two languages?
Who can tell?
Dr. Lazici, please proceed to room 4. Your next patient has been integrated into the clinic construct and is ready for examination. Dr. Lazici, proceed to room 4, please.
One picture-in-picture neural interface processor with Red Fang quasi-neural interface and remote universal device connection. This allows for a virtual head-up display flashed onto the retina. One visual interface advertisement interdict package.
A what?
It's a similar concept to the head-up display, except that instead of displaying subscreens, documents, etc., it blocks things out. Mostly this applies to visual advertisements in digital spaces. but it can also be tailored to block out billboards, placards, and those silly political signs that some humans are so fond of putting up in every unattended space. Let me see. A limbic bypass harness.
I do know what those are. I wrote my cybernetic enhancement thesis paper on limbic enhancement systems. Did you know that Dr. Flenser has a limbic harness variant named after him? My instructors told me he developed it himself.
Indeed. And what did they say that the Flenser variant does?
It functions as a consciously active switch for emotions. You can turn them on and off just by thinking about it. The bypass harness redirects the initial neural impulses that cause the emotions.
Just so. Remind me later, Dr. Beatrice. I should like to read this thesis paper of yours, out of professional curiosity. It just so happens that our patient here is, in fact, slated to receive a Flenser variant limbic bypass harness, according to the surgical itinerary. And last on the list, a Bergen-class implant array. Function redacted. I wonder why the work order would have that information redacted. I know what the Bergen implant array is and what it does. No sense in trying to cover anything up in the surgical suite.
Is it maybe something the patient shouldn't be overhearing? Or maybe it's classified for doctors only?
I'm not sure. These surgery orders come directly from the director's office, and I'm hard put to see Dr. Chaudhur doing something like this. He's generally very free with his information. I think this redaction comes from the technomancer himself. But that doesn't make any sense either. Such a one as he would certainly know that a surgeon qualified to implant such a device would necessarily know its function.
It's not really worth bothering about then, is it?
Bog only knows.
Dr. Rensselaer, please proceed to sublevel 3, containment chamber 16. Your next vivisection specimen has been shared. Dr. Rensselaer, proceed to sublevel 3, containment chamber 16, please.
Well, now that we have the list sorted, Dr. Beatrice, if you could take this and go to the supply vault. It has not been long since last I looked over the devices we have in ready stock, but I feel certain that everything on that list is available. You have been issued all of your proper access keys and privilege codes, yes?
Oh, yes. Keys and codes. Yes. Dr. Chaudhur presented them to me personally when I returned from the medical lyceum.
Then go forth to the vault and return with what is needed. I shall prepare the surgical implements.
Yes, Doctor.
How interesting. She moves as quietly as Nurse Penny does. So much about our dear little Beatrice has changed since she's become a doctor. Ah, but I ramble while my silent, confused patient lies here unmoving. Worry not. We shall have your skull opened up and your new hardware implanted in a twinkling. You won't feel a thing, I promise. Our anesthetics here at the Dream Clinic are the finest to be had anywhere in the Dreamlands, and far superior to anything even dreamed of by humans. I'm going to secure your head in this surgical clamp ring. It is going to rise up behind your head and secure itself to several points around your skull. After that, I will activate the restraining bands on the operating table. They will expand to hold you in place when the table begins to tilt you to a more angled position. For we cannot perform delicate surgery upon your exposed brain with you laying flat on your back. Why, your brain might just roll out of your skull and onto the table. And then where would we be? No. Far better to have you restrained in a more convenient position. There we are. Now there is no chance of your head moving around during the procedure. And the restraining bands. Perfect. I will move the operating table into position for surgery. The only things still needful are the surgical instruments and the implants themselves. Let us bring forth the articles of complex neurosurgery.
Nurse Shaw, please bring a check-a-class dental extraction kit to room 8. A check-a-class dental extraction kit to room 8, please.
Dr. Beatrice, you're just in time. Did the equipment cache contain everything on the list?
I found everything with ease except for the interdict package. The cache inventory said that there was one remaining, but it wasn't in the proper location. I followed a hunch and looked around for a little bit. I finally found it tucked into a weird little nook in the back of the room. I will bet you a human-made jelly donut that Nurse Long is the reason that device ended up where it did.
I've no doubt that you are right, Dr. Beatrice. Misplaced items and minor tampering are something of a hobby for Nurse Long, if his past history at the clinic is any indication. Yes, he has quite the penchant for mischief. Shall we begin with the implantation, Dr. Beatrice?
Certainly, Dr. Suleymahn. Will you be making the incisions then?
I thought I would leave that honor to you. A sort of welcome back present. I will stand by and observe. If you would please to perform a Harropath-style craniotomy to expose the patient's neural tissue.
Very well, Doctor. Craniotomy complete. Neural tissue exposed.
Excellent work. Now, are you familiar with the de Brannon technique of neural mapping?
Of course, Doctor. It's the current standard for cybernetic implantation of humans.
Then I shall name the device to be implanted and call out the mapping location on the surface of the exposed neural tissue. You may apply the implantation contacts for each device to the proper area and help to guide each device as it incorporates itself into the surrounding brain matter. These are all self-implanting artifacts, but the best results can only be had with a steady hand to assist them.
Let's get started then.
First, the ocular implant with language translator and accessories. Approach. Korba. Santiel, Rosha, Mark 253.
Affirmative. Implanting now. Implant complete.
Next, the picture-in-picture neural interface processor with universal device connection. Approach. Sarturi, Ilana, Regev, Mark 104.
Affirmative. Implanting now. Implant complete.
Nurse Long, please put a number 3 amputation in screw 13. A number 3 amputation in screw 13, please.
And now, the visual interface advertisement interdict package. Approach. Kartak, Dorgai, Rovani, Mark 204.
Affirmative. Implanting now. Implant complete.
Next, the limbic bypass harness, Flenser variant. Approach. Borloy, Trenmak, Golobo, Mark 074.
Affirmative. Implanting now. Implant complete.
And finally, the Bergen class implant array. Function redacted. I'm still finding it hard to reason out why that device's function is redacted on the itinerary.
Dr. Suleymahn, what exactly is the Bergen array supposed to do? Is it really that complicated? Or secret?
I suppose there's no real harm in you knowing, Dr. Beatrice. The Bergen class implant array is an advanced biocybernetic array designed to run parallel with the human nervous system. It's basically a neural cutout and control network that allows an outside operator with sufficient skill and control to completely take over the motion of the host body. The array also features a high-fidelity recording system that allows the entire sensory experience of the host to be recorded and experienced by other entities, if the operator of the cutout control array so chooses.
So it's a full-body sensorium recorder and remote operator system. It would turn the host into a walking drone, wouldn't it?
Basically, yes.
That sounds like basic possession with extra steps.
Indeed, but, well, as the Silicon Prince requests and requires, so shall the Silicon Prince receive. Approach Telerani, Velukite, Noshoranuk, Mark 007.
Affirmative. Implanting now. Implant complete. How did I do, Doc? I mean, Doctor.
We won't know for certain until we run some tests. But from what I observed, it was a flawless implantation series. Set the diagnostic suite, Dr. Beatrice, and we'll run some standard functionality tests while we still have the patient's brain accessible.
Yes, Doctor.
Nurse Beckley,
for a time. The monitor array will notify us if anything is amiss. So, Dr. Beatrice, how are you liking your first professional surgical procedure? Is the field of cybernetic neuromedicine everything you had hoped for?
Honestly, I thought I might still be a little squeamish about doing, brain stuff. But that hasn't been a problem. Not since my finals at the Lyceum, and not even a twinge or twitch during the surgery. They really have some first-class personality augmentations available to the students, that's for sure.
And how did you find the Lyceum experience in general? With regards to the doctorate program, I mean. It wouldn't be quite the same as the nursing school.
It reminded me very much of my training as a nurse, actually. Only there was less mental preparation for becoming a doctor and a lot more of being strapped to a chair in a dark room and having knowledge and lore dumped into my brain. Some of that is still getting properly settled into my head, They say that the full indoctrination experience for certified doctors can take years to completely unfold itself in the mind. There was one, well, to call it weird doesn't fully convey the thought. I thought I was going crazy. My first few months at the medical lyceum, I kept seeing Nurse Harbatkin everywhere.
Nurse Harbatkin? Incarcerate at the Lyceum? But that can't be right. She's been here at the Dream Clinic the whole time you've been away. Upstairs in the rest and recovery suites, in fact. You see, just after you left for carcery, she...
Oh, yes. I heard all about that shortly after I returned to the clinic. Dr. Shriyan took me aside and told me everything.
Nurse Helen, please bring 2 units of medical chloroform to rest and recovery suite 9. 2 units of medical chloroform to rest and recovery suite 9, please.
But what I was going to say was, I kept seeing Nurse Harbatkin. I knew it wasn't her. I knew she was here. Just not that she flipped her lid on the account of the cat. But there she was anyway, all over the place. Pretty much every building on the campus had Nurse Harbatkin working at the front desk, or the security office, or whatever you'd see first when you go into the place. And I did some asking around, and it turns out that the Harbatkin type is just the preferred administrative and managerial type for those sorts of jobs. Just like our own Nurse Harbatkin here at the clinic. I wonder if they might all be from the same demonic archetype. Or if they're some sort of mass-produced demon spawn like Dr. Shriyan and her brood siblings.
That's an interesting and puzzling question, Dr. Beatrice. I shall have to look into that sometime. Perhaps I might write to a friend of mine. Well, it seems that the functionality tests are complete. All implants are functioning normally and operating in standby mode. Excellent. If you would, Dr. Beatrice, please apply the bioregenerative sealant spray to the patient's cranium and put it gently back where it belongs.
Yes, Doctor, right away. Cranium replaced. The incision appears to be closing up nicely. And there we go. All closed up. They might wake up with a scar that will need explaining, but that should fade a few hours after waking.
I'm going to mark this procedure as a success, then. Congratulations, Dr. Beatrice, on completing your first professional surgery.
Thank you, Dr. Suleymahn. I'll admit I was a little nervous.
You did just fine. As close to a textbook example as we have for such a varied series of implantations. I'm going to activate the hypno-ambient healing generator now. We can return the patient, surgical table restraints and all, into their containment capsule for reintegration. Soon enough they'll be asleep and wending their way across the dreamlands, back to the mortal realm from whence they came. And once they awaken and the last scars have faded, their memory of this place will be but a confusing thread of a dream. They shall continue on with their daily life as before, but with such improvements in lifestyle as their new suite of cybernetic implants allow. That is, until such time as the technomancer chooses to turn his attention their way. May that moment be blessed for them, and may the Silicon Prince be merciful.
Dr. Flenser, please proceed to Surgical Suite 11. Your next patient is awake and ready for their procedure. Dr. Flenser, proceed to Surgical Suite 11, please.
Oh, how wonderful. It seems that Nurse Harmatkin has resumed her post at the duty station.
Og's in his heaven and all's right with the world.
Now, human. Back into the containment capsule with you.
Goodbye. Pleasant dreams. Or no dreams if you like.